gosh. Why does it gotta be like this? Why does a simple, easy job have to be not simple or easy? This whole bike is making me mad. That's all frigged up. No wonder that's not going on there. Seriously. Why does everything have to be in the way? I don't know what the heck's going on there. Seriously, dude? Man. Why is all this stuff like so freaking screwed? What a freaking mess, I tell yas. Hello everybody and welcome back to my channel. I hope you are all doing better than this motorcycle that I've been working on for the last who knows how long now. So I've been working on my friend Charlie's motorcycle. The last video I showed me pulling his transmission out. I'm going to be swapping the transmission that was in there with a different transmission that he has that's hopefully better functioning than the other transmission was. But I just wanted to show you guys some of the shoddy work I've encountered pulling the primary and the transmission out of this motorcycle, because this motorcycle is the prime example of just complete amateur work. And that's coming from someone like me who is pretty much an amateur herself, but I do not like to operate like an amateur. I like to operate like someone who takes pride in their work and wants to learn. Whoever did the work on this motorcycle, it was not Charlie, in case any of you are wondering. He bought it this way, but whoever did the work on it, they just did not care at all. That's the only conclusion that I've been able to come to with what I've encountered on this bike. So let's just have a look, guys, at what I'm talking about, because it's just a freaking mess. So I've already done a bunch of cleaning up on this inner primary. Just an example, guys, of amateur work is the amount of silicone that is on this thing. Like, this thing has so much silicone on it, it was like glued to the engine. After I'd taken all the fasteners out, I had a hard time pulling this off of the engine. This seal's not even put in all the way, and it obviously needs to be changed. JB Weld, I don't even know what's going on there and why there's JB Weld, because it doesn't look like it's cracked. So that's the inside. It's a washer there, stuck to the inside of the thing with silicone. So I'm gonna have to clean all that off. All this stuff's not looking too bad. Like, this is like a brand new clutch. This was jammed onto the main shaft. It was quite the time getting that off of there. I had to use this massive puller that Charlie built and sent to me. This massive puller. This is like 1.25 inch bolt and this huge thick chunk of plate. So he built that at work and sent it here because I broke my puller trying to pull the clutch off because it was done up so tight. I had to borrow like a huge impact gun from the neighbor because mine was not doing it. You should not have to use an impact gun on this. Won't wreck anything really doing it, but it was clearly put on with an impact. It had to come off with one. Outer primary looks like it's not in bad shape. It needs a little bit of cleaning up and stuff. We've got the rest of his clutch sitting here. So this is actually a Riviera Primo clutch. We're going to be putting that back on. It doesn't look like it's been damaged with over torquing or anything like that. So this is the bike itself. It was just a disaster in here. This is the stator that came out of there. It's just totally mangled. Some of these coils are actually loose on here, just flopping around like that one. You can just see how the plates on that are spread out from this tumbling around, and they're loose with broken bolts. And when those broke, or whatever they got caught on that caused them to break, it actually broke the case where they were bolted into. So there's actually a chunk missing here. Yeah, guys, it's just a freaking mess, I tell ya. Over here, this is the transmission that I pulled out. The issue with this transmission and the reason how come he wanted a different one in there is because this transmission does not shift into third gear for some reason. Going up into third, it won't shift. It'll shift down into third. It won't go up into third. Just another example, guys, of just like the shoddy work. So this lever was not on all the way. It was super sloppy on there. We fixed it up because we thought maybe that lever being sloppy would have something to do with why it's shifting poorly. That did not change anything, making that better. But the bolt for it was only going in about halfway. We wanted to clean the threads out, so we went to run a tap through there, but the tap would only go in halfway through too. And then we realized that it was just filled with something, so we went to like clean it out. We actually had to use this little tiny drill bit on a drill, which we just had to very carefully make sure we weren't chewing up the aluminum. We had to drill out a huge pile of Loctite. So all of this on the bench here that you see, that's all Loctite. This is all Loctite. It was just a massive amount of Loctite in there. So we got that cleaned up. The transmission still doesn't shift into third like it should. Even just like shifting up into third, it feels like it almost goes into third, and the top will be in the position where it should be in third, but that shifter dog will just be on the outside of third gear as it is right now and just kind of rattling up against it. We're going to put the transmission in that is apparently a good transmission, and we're going to just hope that it actually is a good transmission and that, you know, Charlie can ride his bike. So let's get working on this transmission. Come on, pull that out. Pull the seal out. Why is everything on this thing ridiculous? There you have it. Finally. You look at all this stuff in there. So we'll be pulling all these out. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 20. 44 of them. A whole bunch of grit. Okay guys, so Charlie's transmission has been sealed up for a little while now, and I just got to put his bike back together, but I had to track down a few parts. I had to figure out what we were going to do about putting his stator back into the case, because his old stator had been ripped out, so a bunch of the threads for the stator screws were all screwed up, and the thing just looks like a mess. So upon further inspection, we realized that there was still enough thread in the cases that if we just got longer screws, we should be able to just use the screw holes that were already there. But while we were cleaning out the holes and getting them ready to put the new screws in with some Loctite, we discovered something that is not so great. And I thought that I was done discovering problems on this bike. I was hoping that it would just be like a breeze and everything was just going to go back together from this point. But of course, that is not the case, because when idiots attack, they attack fiercely and with no mercy. And that's exactly what has happened to this bike. Some idiot attacked it with their idiot strength and lack of knowledge, or just lack of care, and they really messed things up here. So I'm going to show you guys what I'm talking about here, and then I'm going to try to remedy the issue as best I can. Yeah, so let's just have a look. What a mess. Okay, so here's what we're working with here, and anybody who's not familiar with these cases, like the early Evos and the shovel heads have and stuff, the bearing race, this here, would just be round in a stock case. They wouldn't have these bits here. So it would have a lot more aluminum work in here. And if that were the case, no pun intended, anyways, if we had the original cases or stock cases on here, then we would have like aluminum, like a good amount of aluminum kind of working all the way around this bearing race. And it would be easy to put the stator in there and just turn it a little tiny bit and drill and tap some new holes. But that is not the situation here. So we had to figure things out differently. Now, originally we were going to rotate the stator and we were going to drill and tap new holes in these bits here, but that would mean that we would have to extend the wires so much, and then we wouldn't have the clearance in back behind here to actually clear the stator when it's rotating. Like the wires would just be pressed right up against the stator, and that would be no good. So this would have to actually be bored out here. We'd have to have like a channel kind of bored into the case here so that we would have more room for the stator. We're not going to do that right now. So when we were looking at everything, we discovered that there was actually enough thread in there, and I got some screws that are a lot longer than the stock screws, or the screws that come with the Drake Specialty Stator anyway, and they go in for enough that we can still catch like a good amount of thread in there. But the issue is, now we cleaned these all out and we just ran a tap through them all just to make sure that the threads weren't all buggered up from the screws being like ripped out of them. Then we discovered that this one here, this hole, goes straight through into the crankcase, and that's a problem. How we discovered that is when we were blowing air through, we had oil coming out the breather. So that's just a clear sign that that air is going in and pressuring up the crankcase. We were kind of worried that maybe the bearing had been knocked out of place, but I called up a guy here who's a professional. He's got about 40 years or maybe more in the business, and he's done a lot of this kind of work. He told me not to worry about the bearing, but the main issue here would be sealing up this hole here that's going into the case so that we're not blowing all of our oil out of the case and filling up the primary. He told me to seal this hole somehow, and to also put JB weld just kind of where the aluminum has been knocked out of place here, just to prevent the bearing, or just to prevent vibration that could happen. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to push some silicone into there, into the back of that hole, and then use the silicone to seal up where it's leaking into the case. And then with the rest of this, where there aren't any threads, I'm gonna just push some JB weld in there as best I can. I don't want to get JB weld in the threads because I don't want the JB weld hardening in the threads and messing things up. So I'm gonna just try to push some silicone into the back there as best I can, and we're gonna see how this goes. It's a nightmare motorcycle, I tell you guys. Okay, so I've got that old JB welded up, and I actually ended up JB welding this whole area where the case is separated from the bearing race, because just out of curiosity, I took my air compressor gun and I just kind of went around the entire cavity just because I was curious to see if the air was just leaking through this hole into the case or if it was the entire separated area that was leaking. And I discovered that it was in fact the entire separated area, so the air was getting through from this point here all the way around back over to about here. How I did that is I just held my gun, my air compressor gun, just right up to the crack, and then I held my finger on the hose coming out the breather and I could feel air. I'm hoping that this will seal it up well enough that he's not going to end up losing his oil through the primary. So his stator is in, and luckily I had a spare rotor around, which is actually a stock rotor, because his rotor, I was looking at it and I was like, those magnets are not evenly spaced. So I went to grab the one magnet, and this magnet is actually just loose in here. Yeah, that obviously cannot be used, but that is why it says right on it, no sharp blows, because you can knock your magnets off and probably do other damage. And I'm getting ready to put his transmission in, but I have come across one major issue that is preventing things from moving forward yet again. And I don't know what it is with this bike, but every time I think it's going to be smooth sailing ahead, there's one more major roadblock that prevents everything from moving forward at all. After resealing his ratchet top transmission and cleaning it all up, I don't even think I can use it, because his inner primary primary and a starter are from a Sturgis belt drive primary, and the belt drive primary is different than the chain drive primary in a few ways. Also, the transmission I was trying to put in here is from early electric start, so it would have not been a belt start, it would have been a chain drive. And the inner primaries are different, not only on the inside of the primary but on the outside where it bolts to the transmission and stuff. There's some clearance issues, so I'm going to show you guys what I'm talking about. Hopefully I can salvage the transmission that came out of here. I'm going to show you guys what I think the issue with the transmission that came out of the bike might be. Okay guys, so this is his new to him transmission that I just resealed, and it's what I was going to put into his bike until I tried to fit the primary to it, mostly because I wanted to check that these studs were going to be long enough, because the transmission I took out of his bike, this one right here, it doesn't have studs. The primary is just held on with bolts, and these studs looked too short. So I was trying to fit the primary to it and noticed that not only are the studs too short, which wasn't really that big of a deal if that was the only issue, this casting here is just not allowing the primary to even go on all the way. So this is actually hitting the casting on the primary, which is preventing that from going on far enough. Unfortunately, that means that this transmission is not going to fit with the primary that he has. We did take a look at this and we checked out the shifting issue and all that, the fact that it's not going into third gear, and we kind of just set it aside because we couldn't really figure out what the issue was and why it wasn't actually shifting into third gear. But since I've run into the dilemma with this one, I decided to take a closer look at this. So I took the top back off, and my dad actually noticed, and maybe you guys can notice, something going on with these shifter forks. I actually had this whole thing out of here already because I was going to fix the problem, but then I decided I should make a video of this. But anyway, this shifter fork, if you can see the top of it, this block is not actually sitting flat as it should be. So this one you can see is sitting flat. It's sitting like level with the top of the transmission, but this one here is actually kind of askew. It's kind of like pointed off this direction a little bit. So I'm going to take this thing out. I'm going to undo the nut. I already undid the tabs on the lock washer, and I'm going to level this thing off, and I'm going to see if that makes a difference to how this thing shifts or not. And if it does, then I'm going to replace all the seals in this. Thankfully, Charlie has doubles of all of the seals. So let's get this thing over to my vise. Hopefully fixing that little tiny error fixes the whole issue with this transmission. We are praying. Okay. Okay, so I've got some copper jaws in my little baby vise here. I'm just gonna clamp this thing in there. There we go. Okay, that is apart. Let's go check it out. There's actually like slots in this part and then a little tab on the shifter fork. So we're gonna take a look here and see. Okay, well that looks a lot more flat than it was. I guess you've got a little bit of play in there. Why is that so messed up? This is actually like chewed up looking there. I'm gonna have to try to clean that up just so I can get the shifter fork to go on without being forced on. You can still see it, but this fits way better now. It doesn't have to be forced on. It's definitely flatter than it was. I guess I'll do it up there and I'll put the top on and see if that makes a difference to how it shifts at all. Okay guys, so I just got my dad out here to help turn the transmission while I shift it. So he's gonna keep spinning it. We've already tested this off camera, and I'm gonna shift through the gears, and I think that that shifter fork being all tilted in there was actually the issue, because it seems to be shifting properly now. So right now it's in neutral. I'm gonna shift through all the gears and go into third from the bottom, and then we're just gonna see how it works. Okay, first, second, that should be third, fourth, It was shifting down into third just fine when he was riding the bike and also when we were bench testing it. But shifting up into third, it was just like going into neutral like you guys saw in my first video that I did. So just having that shifter fork tilted in there was all the issue. So luckily my dad noticed that when I had the top off in here. So we should be able to just pop his old transmission back in. And this should hopefully be smooth sailing from here. Hold on a second while I put my glove on. Shoot. Tragic child angel. You're retarded. Don't get punched in the face by me.
It's up to you.
Just taking too great. Stay over there, you big ass moth. Get out of here. Oh my gosh, that thing is huge. Like a little bird. Get out of my garage. I'm gonna have to like kill it. Seriously, like stay the hell away from me, bugs. Why does everything take me so long to do? Are you kidding me right now? Why is that not working? I don't want to punch myself in the face. Are you kidding me right now? Like, what a fatty. Okay, we're gonna JB weld this freaking piece of crap. Seriously? How does like one thing happen and then everything freaking falls apart? What is this thing doing? I gotta start that over. Why do I always scream like that? That music is really annoying. Ah, itchy. I always forget to do stuff like that. My hair is large and in charge today. Chopping off my head. This is not working out, man. Why are you not working out? Pain in the butt, man, I tell you. Ouch. Dang it. Seriously, man. I've got a freaking afro right now. These are all too freaking long. That is a big bug. That's disgusting. You better stay away from me. Stop scratching me, Tiny! I'm starting to feel like I should go for a bike ride and then come back and do this though, but that would probably just make it so I don't finish this tonight for sure. It's so nice out right now and it's not windy. I'm gonna have to think about it.